Welcome. I am Chris Moore with Senior Remodeling Experts. We are here for another edition of Aging in Place is a Team Sport. And I am privileged to have with me today Kendra Williams with Apex Fitness. I've been doing a lot of thinking about aging and about kind of what we expect in the decline, both mentally and cognitively, as well as physically and emotionally, and how much of that is mandatory and how much of it is something we can do something about. So, Kendra's going to talk today about the services she has available and what she's doing in the arena of fitness. So, welcome, Kendra.
Hi, Chris. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you taking the time and everything that you're doing to bring awareness to the aging process and the things that we can do to kind of come alongside that. So, yeah, to talk a little bit about what you mentioned as far as what things can we control. So, exercise is the number one thing that we can do to kind of come alongside those different things that you mentioned as far as the shift cognitively as well as physically in that aging process. So, as we know, over time, our muscle mass does start to decrease. That happens as early as age 30. And from there, we also notice a decrease in bone density as well as quickness, reaction time, and as you said, even cognitive function. Part of what we do here at Apex Fitness and my primary reason in starting this business is to, like I said, take a little bit of a different approach to the fitness process, taking into account those physiological needs in that aging process, spending a little bit of extra time on that balance work that we also very much need, as well as taking time to do some brain exercises. We work on that cognitive function in our sessions as well, which, as we all know, the brain needs to exercise just as much as our muscles do. And that really helps decrease chances for dementia and things like that, making sure that we stay up on those as well. The strength training becomes increasingly important, as I mentioned, in the aging process for bone density. Maintaining that strength training as we age is going to be super important for making sure those bones stay strong, as well as increasing that muscle mass in order to kind of lessen the effects of that aging process.
Okay. It comes to mind a lot of what we deal with is trying to get people to be proactive as opposed to reactive. When we encourage people to do home modifications and people say, I'm not ready for that yet. I don't need that. And then they wait until after they fall and break something. And then they say, wow, I
Yep.
wish, we really should have had a grab bar in the bathroom. How much of a benefit is it if somebody comes to you early when they're, still in pretty good shape versus they come to you and they can barely stand up and their balance is terrible and they have very little muscle and then they come to you and say, Kendra, fix this.
Help. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so we're definitely very much about coming alongside anybody who comes in our doors, no matter where they're at. But that being said, you hit the nail on the head as far as being proactive versus reactive. The statistics for recovery post fracture, especially in the aging population, is pretty staggering, even up against survival rates for certain cancers among the aging population. You would be shocked to see the 5-year survival rate of say a hip fracture versus some cancers. So that being said, definitely best to be proactive and get ahead of it. So the more we can, as I said, kind of come alongside and be proactive about working on that reaction time and stuff like that to where you don't have to get to that point where you have to go to physical therapy first and then try to rebuild after that. If we can get ahead of the curve and be able to work on those speed and power movements, which again, people don't necessarily think about needing in the aging process. Unfortunately, a lot of society takes a viewpoint in the aging process that, like, oh, you're getting older, we need to slow down, we need to be careful, where that's when those accidents kind of start to occur because we're kind of starting to see that we're slowing down a little bit and getting scared. And unfortunately, that's when we a lot of times see those accidents happen. So by getting ahead of it, not only are we able to maintain the muscle mass, we're able to maintain that quick reaction time so that if life happens and you do trip, we can catch ourselves and not fall to avoid some of those costly fractures.
Okay. So do you see a big difference in people that are retired versus people that are still working? I know a lot of jobs nowadays are very sedentary and people of all ages spend, most of their life sitting in a chair, and as opposed to, in times past when more labor was physical, people lived on farms, they worked on the farm,
Yeah,
they were doing physical activity, throughout their life. And
yeah,
we see people who are of advanced age and have continued to be active in,
yes,
maybe working on a farm as an example, and
yeah.
have maintained, health and wellness into, well into advanced years, as opposed to people who are sedentary and have to be very intentional about getting exercise because their daily activity
Yes.
really doesn't contain any. How much of that do you see in your practice?
Absolutely. I see a lot of it. And that goes along with a PT that I used to work for. He said it all the time, motion is lotion. So you see that those people who have really stayed active and grew up in an active lifestyle and continued that generally tend to have a little bit less aches and pains versus those who, like you said, if you work at a desk, it's very common to have the shoulders forward. A lot of times people will have wrist issues, hip issues, low back issues from being in that seated position for a long time. And of course, when you have aches and pains, it makes it even harder to want to move because it's almost like your body saying, no, no, we don't want to do that. When that's actually like the best thing that you can do is to get up and move and put some grease in those joints to be able to get a moving again. But yes, that being said, again, goes along the lines of keep moving. The more we can stay active in all planes of fitness, like I said, that's resistance, that's power training, that's even the cognitive things. The more we can stay active and keep moving in that, the less decline we're going to see and the less complications for injuries. And if you do get injured and you have already been proactive about that, your recovery time is going to be so much quicker. A lot of times people will come to me before they need a knee replacement and they'll be like, well, does it make sense to come and train with you if I know I'm going to need a knee replacement in the near future? And I'm like, absolutely. It is one of those things. The stronger you can be going into whether it be an operation or again an accidental injury, the stronger you are ahead of time, the quicker that recovery is
Yeah.
going to be.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I think too that it's all connected: physical health, your
Yeah,
emotional well-being, your spiritual health, your
absolutely.
all of that is all connected
Yep.
and goes hand in hand. And if you start going downhill, you start not feeling well, and I don't really want to exercise, and so I'm not going to exercise, and then I start feeling sluggish, and then I get
Yeah.
a bad mood, and it's just down and down, as opposed to some of the little things that you do consistently can
Yes.
can really start the trend in a positive direction.
Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons that I'm such a firm believer in group exercise. So at our gym, we do one on one training, but our primary focus is small group personal training. So we do classes of no more than 6 people. And the purpose of that is so that I can specifically tailor the exercises to who I have in class to accommodate, like I said, anyone who comes in our doors, no matter the level that they're at. But that way they still get that added benefit emotionally as far as that social connection, that added accountability to be able to come in and see people that you enjoy and build those relationships with people who have similar goals. They're in a similar phase of life. They're all working towards those very functional goals, with the primary one being that they want to live life to the fullest as long as they possibly can.
Yeah, and maybe even a little bit of competitiveness in those group classes where
Yes.
somebody doesn't want to not show up because their friend who's there also is going to say, well, what happened?
They'll let them know. They will absolutely reach out and be like, "Why weren't you there today?" And that's definitely a fantastic tool because I tell people all the time, I've had tons of people come in my doors that say, I really don't like exercise, but I'm at a point in life where I can recognize that this is something that I need. So my goal is to figure out the why behind why are we doing what we're doing and find a way to make it enjoyable. And part of that is that community because we have enough things in everyday life, no matter the phase of life that you're in, you have enough things on your list, so to speak, that have to get done throughout the day. And my goal is that this is not one of the have to do's and just check it off the list, that people can actually come in here and look forward to that experience.
Awesome. Anything else you want to add?
I think that pretty much covers it. Like you said, my main goal with this is just trying to give people a tool. Like you said, it's a team sport, the aging process and aging in place. So my hope is just that everyone can find what works for them, and that whichever path they choose, that it gives them the ability to keep doing what they want to do, age with vitality, and be able to continue adventuring as long as possible.
Perfect. So if people want to learn more, how do they get in touch with you?
Our website is apexfitnessva.com, or they can send me an email at info@apexfitnessva.com.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being here, Kendra. And I hope all of you will tune in again next time. We will have more of aging in place as a team sport as we talk to lots of different providers about how we can make a difference in your life. And so if you like what you're seeing, please like and subscribe and have a great day. And thank you for watching.